Peyton Anderson's had an enormous influence on NewTown Macon. In fact, NewTown Macon wouldn't exist if it weren't for the Peyton Anderson Foundation. Early on in the foundation's history, they decided that one of their signature projects was going to be saving Downtown Macon, which was not an easy task. At the time, there were millions of square feet of beautiful historic architecture that were sitting vacant, and there was no real plan about how downtown was going to bounce back. But the trustees of Peyton Anderson Foundation, under the leadership of Juanita Jordan, decided that the city would either thrive or die from the inside out. And so without a vibrant downtown, no one in Middle Georgia was going to have a prosperous future. And with that imperative, decided that it would take a nonprofit focused solely on downtown revitalization to bring Macon back. In the history of the world, people always love to get together, and cities are the centers of economic vitality for entire regions. They want to be able to live, work, and play all in one neat little walkable, beautiful neighborhood, and downtown Macon has that naturally. It's a durable value that Peyton Anderson Foundation recognized early on and formed NewTown Macon to ensure that we could succeed in revitalizing downtown. The reason I think that downtown revitalization speaks so much to Peyton Anderson's intent in forming the foundation and leaving his assets to trust is because that people don't save a place they don't care about. And so the passion that Peyton Anderson had for Macon, it would have been easy to give the money to a bunch of do-gooders, and that's what Peyton Anderson warned against. Is he wanted good things to happen instead of just a bunch of do-gooders. So there are all these causes that Peyton Anderson Foundation's donated to, but deciding you're going to save the whole city is the exact scale and importance and critical outcome that I think Peyton Anderson would have been interested in. I think he honestly, though, would be amazed at the success the trustees have had in pursuing that vision. And without his leadership in leaving that money in trust, NewTown wouldn't have been formed and downtown wouldn't be saved. I think it's really that simple. Through that leadership, we've finally gotten to a point where our biggest challenge in downtown revitalization is building lofts fast enough for people to move in. Now there is more demand than supply, and that is a huge accomplishment. I think that's probably the biggest marker of success, but the way we've gotten there is just tenacity and leadership that Peyton Anderson's refused to give up, and they've kept all the other community leaders at the table working towards that goal. Really successful entrepreneurs and business people, they have some common characteristics, and I think one of the ones that Bryan Nichols really shares with Peyton Anderson is this confidence in their own vision, that they can see into the future that none of the rest of us can see. And you can clearly see that in the way that Bryan's invested in developing downtown. I'm really glad we're at the point where he's benefiting from that too, and Bryan is still moving straight along with the strategy that he knew would work before anyone else.
Well, years ago, it would have been the early 90s, downtown was such a rundown area, and we were starting a small manufacturing company manufacturing wax-scented pine cones. And of course, trying to find more space to do that with, we were looking for some cheap space. Eventually, we ended up purchasing the building, which we got a great deal on because they were giving buildings away back then. We ended up starting a vinyl siding company. Because the building boom was so big in Macon that eventually we became a pretty large company. And then we started using the 15,000 square feet as storage space for construction materials. So as time went on, though, and I changed even from that, we had the warehouse just sitting vacant, doing nothing. So I had this crazy idea when the church approached me about renting the second floor for a college ministry because they wanted to be in an urban area, about possibly building some lofts on the third floor that might attract some college students. I changed from doing just cheaper lofts into doing more upscale, which really there weren't many of, just to see if it would work. And I really felt that it was time for downtown, and I could see shifts being, made in how people wanted to live and the lifestyles that they wanted. NewTown was a huge resource for me. I remember not even really knowing who NewTown was, but when I approached them about the project, the excitement that I saw on their face for somebody to be doing something like this really encouraged me because everybody else was saying how crazy I was. But NewTown was being very encouraging because they saw the same things that I saw. We rented all 3 of those lofts before we even drove the first nail, and we began to see that there was a huge demand not just for loft but also historic preservation. The support wasn't necessarily financial, but it was huge for me to be able to see a team of people who really cared about what was going on so that I didn't feel completely alone in jumping on things. We chose to do Poplar Street and to see if we couldn't help spur development around where we were. We wanted to make it as nice as possible because we felt the nicer we made it, the nicer other people would begin to come in beside us and do the same thing. This is my town. This is my city. These are my people. And I've always felt that to make a difference in this world would be to start where you live. And so everything that I do, I've always looked at by what do we need? What do we need more of? How can I improve on what's being done around me? How can I partner up with those who are next door or across the street? And the support of the community has been great, but to then once again, be able to go to NewTown and say, what are we missing? Because they have resources that an individual might not have to be able to do the studies and to know kind of a plan, which has been huge with the Macon Action Plan, the different things, to be able to look at that big picture and go, okay, I'll fill in this part. This foundation has been a huge part of everything that has happened downtown because regardless of how much somebody like me, puts in, we need the Peyton Anderson Foundation and the support that they've given through NewTown and different organizations, because all kind of things that are going on when you drive down on the weekends and there's just life everywhere. And a lot of those people wouldn't have come if it hadn't have been through the events and the different things that have taken place because of the donations of the Peyton Anderson Foundation.